My name is Aditya Karnik, and it is my honor to serve as the president of the Delhi Union alongside an exceptionally young, talented team of students who believe that good faith discourse is not a privilege but a necessity. The Delhi Union was formed just 4 months ago on the premise that current debate is too often reduced to divisive politics, performative outrage, and conversations that generate more noise than understanding. The Delhi Union seeks to provide a constructive alternative. We envision a space where proponents and opponents of various propositions can sit together to explore solutions and find common ground while engaging in healthy debate. Today's motion, this House believes that India's mainstream media is in terminal decline, is a question that has come to dominate almost all drawing rooms and newsrooms across the country. So, has our mainstream media truly lost credibility? Has it earned the moniker of Godi media? Are platforms like YouTube and Instagram now the primary source of news for all of us? And is digital media truly independent? Or does it simply reproduce the same ideological biases and commercial incentives in a different form? Today's debate will examine these questions with the seriousness and nuance they deserve. Arguing for the motion, we are joined by Mr. Abhinandan Sekhri, the founder of News Laundry and one of India's strongest advocates for independent, reader funded journalism. He has helped pioneer a model that believes journalism should be ultimately accountable to the readers and not to advertisers. He is joined by Mr. Pankaj Pachauri, a veteran journalist and former communications advisor to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. His decades in journalism and public life will bring invaluable insights to this discussion. Alongside them is Mr. Vinod Sharma, one of India's most experienced political journalists and commentators. As a former political editor of the Hindustan Times, he has spent more than 30 years part of mainstream media and is also part of Satya Hindi to tell the truth as it is. Arguing against the motion, we have Mr. Akash Banerjee, a political commentator and digital creator best known for his YouTube platform, the Deshbhakt. He is also someone who has turned our entire team and maybe most of his 6 million followers in being in the opposition of this debate. Being a former journalist with India Today and Times Now, he has seen both sides and is a formidable debater. He is joined by Ms. Suhasini Haidar, a senior journalist and the diplomatic editor at The Hindu. With over 2 decades of experience across print television and television journalism, including roles at CNN IBN and CNN International, she is a formidable opponent. We are joined by Mr. Tarun Vijay, a former member of parliament in the Rajya Sabha, veteran journalist, and former editor of the Hindi weekly Panjanya. Over the years, he has remained an influential voice in public discourse, writing extensively on nationalism, culture, and media. He will join us very shortly. In our last episode, we discussed judicial appointments. We were joined by an illustrious panel composing a former law and justice minister, a former judge, and 6 senior Supreme Court advocates. Today's lineup is no less, with 6 senior journalists who have a combined experience of more than 100 years in journalism. With more than 500 registrations for this debate venue that can accommodate just 100 people, we are deeply humbled by the enthusiasm our initiative has received. It reaffirms our belief that there remains a genuine appetite among people for thoughtful, serious, and good faith debate. We are immensely grateful to all of you, the audience, for your support, especially to our distinguished speakers for giving us their time. We hope today's discussions challenge your assumptions and encourage us all to think more critically about our fourth pillar of democracy. Thank you once again for being here, and we hope you all have a great time.
Namaste everyone, I'm Arvind Pragya and I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of the Delhi Union. I extend a warm welcome to all our speakers, guests, and members of the audience. Today's format has been carefully designed to encourage a sharp, engaging, and respectful exchange of ideas. We will begin with our 6 speakers presenting their arguments in a head-to-head format from this podium here. Each speaker will be allotted 8.5 minutes to present their case. During these speeches, points of information or POIs will be permitted. A POI is a brief interjection from the opposing side intended to question or challenge a point being made. Members may indicate a POI by raising their hand. However, it is entirely at the discretion of the speaker holding the floor to decide whether and when to accept it. We request that all POIs remain concise, relevant, and respectful. Following the individual speeches, we will be taking a short break during which we have a brief stand-up comedy segment planned. After the break, we will move into a 20-minute panel discussion and question and answer session. This will include questions exchanged between the two sides as well as questions from the audience and the union. At the conclusion of the debate, we will conduct a vote of the motion. Both a pre-debate and post-debate ballot will be held, which has been given to all of you in the audience, and the winning side will be determined by the greatest shift in opinion between the two. We request all speakers to adhere to their allotted time limits. Time signals will be provided, and participants are expected to please adhere to it, but we will not stop you. Personal remarks and interruptions outside of POI will not be permitted, as we aim to maintain a space with thoughtful, constructive, and respectful dialogue. The matchups for today are as follows. First, we will have Mr. Abhinandan Sekhri, followed by Akash Banerjee, then Pankaj Pachauri, followed by Suhasini Haidar, then Vinod Sharma, and lastly, Mr. Tarun Vijay. With that, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Abhinandan Sekhri to please take the podium and begin the debate.
Thank you, young man, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm assuming if there's a point of interjection, it will not be taken out from my time, right? Okay, great. So the proposition is that mainstream media is in terminal decline. Now, the good thing about this is it can be interpreted any way you want. Since most of us, in fact, all of us are in the news business, I will interpret it as the news media is in terminal decline, but I could make an equally convincing argument that the entertainment media is in terminal decline, and I could make an equally convincing argument that you cannot distinguish between the two anymore. And the reason for that is convergence. I will get to that, but since you're talking about interpretation, it's loosely interpreted right now because that is the age we live in. You know, stuff like the word facts and truth is also open to interpretation if you go by what we see on mainstream media. A bit like science is open to interpretation if you go by Ramdev, who is a regular commentator on mainstream media, where he talks about everything from health to curing homosexuality and also foreign policy. Suhasini, you know, you should get him sometime to tell us how to solve the Strait of Hormuz crisis because he's run out of ideas on the foreign exchange problem. These are the people you see on mainstream media. And of course, FM has a 1-hour show of his that sidekick, Balkishan, on how to make your life better. If you don't know who Balkishan is, he is the right-hand man of Ramdev, who has cases against him in India and even in Nepal for illegal visas. And he tells you how to live better on an FM channel, which also on the news channel. I don't know if Ayurveda Ramdev has heard of the concept of dentistry or braces, but teeth are better equipped perpendicular to the ground, not parallel. And it also makes a more coherent speech. But for now, I notice that the other side is incomplete, which is unfortunate, but also telling of the terminal decline. I'll come to the technological part of it. We will come to the political later when we have time, and just let me know when we have 7.5 minutes, just you can tap me. Convergence is the one-word answer why this is in terminal decline. Those of you who have been following the internet are old enough to have followed the pre and the post-internet age. Convergence was supposed to be when print, radio, broadcast, pamphlet all converged into one stream to be delivered on your phone. And that has happened. Now, the assumption was convergence would only make indistinguishable what is print, what is broadcast, what is digital. That has happened because now newspapers have podcasters. In fact, Suhasini's current place of work stole my producer from News Laundry for their podcast. But what that convergence has also done is it has brought content onto this one indistinguishable glop of khichdi, where, in fact, I was, following, while I was here, I was scrolling Instagram, and you cannot tell which Instagram post is of a serious news platform and which is of an influencer who's telling you what Malaika is up to in Goa. It's the same pictures, it's the same message, and in fact, I just took screenshots of 3 that are indistinguishable. And I'll tell you why that's important, because news run on brands. And I don't know if there's a camera on me, but there is this. This is India Today. PM touches BJP veteran Makhan Lal Sarkar's feet, seeks blessings. That's India Today. This is NDTV. PM touches feet of 97-year-old Makhan Lal Sarkar in Bengal. Similar picture. Times of India. PM Modi touches feet of 98-year-old Makhan Lal Sarkar. Now you see, There's a 1 year difference in terms of Indian NDTV. This happens when those of you who are like me in school, unlike these young, illustrious children who are organizing such a grand event, who would just take the brightest boy in class and notes them अगर आप चेप देता मैं द का अ कर दूंगा अ का द कर दूंगा तो इन्हें 97 का 98 का 98 का 97 कर दिया but messaging same है. So convergence has completely destroyed what was an exclusive report, an investigation. So news, there is no commercial value to it. And that comes from what is the fundamental model, the commercial or the financial model that they run on. When we started News Laundry in 2012, you know the pre-roll ad, which, I mean, these days, the pre-roll ad is how to learn AI. Few years ago, it used to be that one shoe guy telling you how to become a good manager. When election is on, it'll be some hideous song with Modi ji smiling at you. But that pre-roll ad was priced at between 380 to 410 rupees per thousand. Today, the price of that pre-roll ad is between 30 to 47 rupees. The Google ad was priced at between 50 to 70 rupees. Today's price priced between 12 to 17 rupees. Now, if that is your revenue model, your terminal decline is inevitable. That is a technological and financial intersection. Now let's come to what is being done about it. The good thing about Mr. Modi's government is that they can show up at any situation which is bad and say, I can make this worse. That is their gift. GST ho, COVID ho, black money ho, बुरा है, patient decline पे terminal कर देते हैं. So they come to a declining industry to say, let's just finish it and crush it completely. Now, how does that happen? I gave you one demonstration of, you know, how the same message goes everywhere. Now, if you watch election, you know, the news, you see these very thick graphic bands on television. In print, you'll see the first 4, 5, 6 pages are Sarkari ads. I had a lot of data actually, which I'd got of, you know, how many ads have been given to which channel. You know, I'd got tables, but I don't think I'll have the time to go through each of those. The data tells the story. Go to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, download the balance sheets of all these news organizations, read some stories on News Laundry. You'll have to subscribe for that. And you will get the full picture. But let me just tell you about, this is indicative of what's happening to the industry, that graphic band. So there's be this red graphic band, election will be happening. In the center, you will see, you know, Modi ji doing this, and on the side, you will see Ajay Devgan doing this. Okay? सेंटर में कमल खिलेगा, साइड में विमल मिलेगा, और दोनों ही बहुत हानिकारक हैं, एक शारीरिक सेहत के लिए और दूसरा मीडिया की सेहत के लिए. They are out to make sure it finishes whatever is left. How does that happen? It is the carrot and stick method. If you saw what happened during the Kumbh, depending on what number you choose to believe, about 7,000 crore was the outlay to do a good job of the Kumbh. So there would be an ad which was very well produced. And this is real. You can go check out the videos we've done. There was some song, Chalo Kumbh, Chalo, Allahabad, Chalo, whatever. Oh, it's not Allahabad. What is it now? Prayagraj, that's right. Then cut to traffic jams, stampede, matao, matao, matao. Cut to break, Chalo Kumbh, Chalo, Chalo Kumbh, Chalo. We actually filed an RTI to ask how much Kumbh advertising went to FM channels, because that's all I used to hear when I used to drive to work. How much went to television channels? How much went to newspapers? We didn't get that breakdown, but you got to combine some. In some cases, we got some breakdowns. Those are also there on our website. Now that comes to the commercial angle, the technological angle, and the political angle, and the incentives associated with it. Now, I think what is demonstrable need not be argued, which is the financial model is broken. I would be very impressed if someone can argue otherwise, that it is in great health. These are financially strong companies. These are zombie companies. Those of you economic students know what a zombie company is. It's a company artificially kept alive through revenues that don't come from the actual demand for the product, but by governments or other related parties who have other interests. So these are zombie companies. You withdraw those ads, they will not last 1 quarter. So that is demonstrable. ratings. News Laundry has carried 2 reports, one on BARC. The full form of BARC is, Akash, you know the full form of BARC? I have it written down somewhere. Yeah. Broadcast Audience Research Council, or which used to be called the Television Audience Measurement, TAM. Now you may be wondering, in an age where if your phone overhears you saying, yeah, I'm going for a holiday, everyone from Samsonite to book my whatever ticket, all these ads start popping up. In this age, why can't they tell who's watching what? We all have set-top boxes. They can easily record who is watching what. It is in no one's interest to tell you who is watching what. Even if you go by the official figures, it's on the decline. I will come to, if I have time, on newspaper circulation later, but actually all this is irrelevant because of convergence, the point I made earlier. Everyone is playing for the digital marketplace. So I'll conclude. Let me see if I had anything specific to say in my conclusion. Yeah, so I would just say that I greatly respect both the people who are going to be debating against the proposition. There are 2 people who I admire greatly. In fact, Suhasini, I think, is one of the finest journalists in the country. But you see, my favorite story is the Mahabharata. And my favorite character in that is Karna. Brave, honorable, valiant, but on the wrong side of the debate. And therefore, his defeat was inevitable. And so must we with you. So no matter how honorable or well-intentioned the last leaf, that too must fall when autumn comes. With that, thank you.
Thank you so much for your speech, Mrs. Sekhri. We would now like to call upon Mr. Akash Banerjee to the podium.
So when I got to know about this debate, the topic, usually what happens is a lot of times the organizers say, "Sir, wo wala side kar lo, udhar koi baitha nahi hai." So they were very surprised कि I chose against the motion. Yeah, this is very funny. A guy who's doing digital media, who's whatever little name that he's earned or a little bit of reputation that he's earned, it's because of digital media. I spent 10 years on traditional media, nothing happened there. So why is it that I'm speaking against the motion? Why is it that I'm trying to convince this house that the mainstream media is far from terminal decline? Now, the wording of the topic is very interesting. And in a debate, the wording really matters. How you define it really matters. Unfortunately, the principal speaker from the other side failed to define it in its truest sense. Let me try and let me throw a few challenges to the other side. First and foremost, as Abhinandan pointed out, yes, you can define media in many ways, but since we are all from the news universe, let's keep it to news media. So we can expand the topic a little bit more and say, is mainstream news media in terminal decline? I think we largely agree on that phraseology. Now, the first thing that you have to understand is that nowhere in the debate did the question come, has mainstream journalism gone into terminal decline? Had that been the topic, there wouldn't have been any debate today. Because we all agree that mainstream journalism already is in a bit of a pickle, a lot of pickle, and hence go the media, etc., etc. Now, there is a huge difference between mainstream media and mainstream journalism that is being practiced today. Mainstream journalism, problem. Mainstream media, not going anywhere, not in a terminal decline. And that's what I'll try to explain to you in today's debate. On the other hand, what the proposition has to do is to explain that it is in terminal decline, not that digital is becoming powerful. बहुत हम लोग चौड़ हो जाते हैं. हाँ, अरे 1 million view आ गया. So we have become very powerful. I'll bust that. And I wanted to question myself, and therefore I wanted to speak against the motion. Has really digital, independent, non-mainstream media managed to create such a dent? Are we really making a difference in India? Are we really changing the narrative in India, or it is still being run by mainstream media? I think that is the crux of what we are debating here today. Now, let's take the example of ICE engines versus electric. ICE, internal combustion engines versus electrical engines. Just humor me for a second. So, when you say that it is in terminal decline, and when the proposition is saying is that mainstream media is in terminal decline, what is it that is replacing this terminal decline. When something dies, when there is a vacuum, something takes the place. So by that logic, if mainstream media is on decline, then you have to convince this house is that digital, alternative, independent, call it whatever you want, is actually thriving, is actually doing well. I would like the proposition to explain to me how independent, non-paid, non-Godi media is doing well. Because whichever independent publication you can point your finger at, I will tell you that it is financially struggling. Abhinandan comes and points out that no, you take away the money from the mainstream media and they will collapse in 1 quarter. And if you look at from News Laundry to the Wires to the Scrolls to the Deshbhakts of the world, they are always struggling. They have been struggling in this case for the last 8 years. So what happened? I did everything right. I did what was supposed to do. I followed the rule book. I am not seeing digital media thrive. On the other hand, I am seeing digital media being crushed in favor of mainstream media. Is it right? Is it wrong? I am not here to debate that. But please understand, digital media today exists at the benevolence and at the graciousness of the government of today. Because enough rules and regulations have been made to tamper, to kill the independent spirit, to kill the journalism, to kill the finances of even independent media. Therefore, we will soon see a situation where your independent media will start resembling mainstream media. Because that is how, and there is a reason for that. It's not just the government. There is somebody to blame for that. I'll get to that in just a second. So the proposition's point about these being zombie companies and independent media thriving is absolutely ludicrous because you have to substantiate with the examples. I'm waiting for that example to come out. Now, coming to narrative control. If digital media was that good and mainstream media was dying, and I've been asked this question, so in 2024, did mainstream media not play a role or it failed to play a role? Did it result in the BJP not getting adequate number of votes? And here's the funny part. I have to explain to them that, boss, let's not get carried away. The urban centers of India, the youth, the urban, the people who watch digital, independent content, non-mainstream content, they didn't change their voting preference. Urban India got more votes for the BJP. It was the rural India, the heartland India that didn't vote for the BJP. So either people sitting in villages are watching Abhinandan Sekhri and Akash Banerjee, or that the people who are watching us in urban centers, we didn't make a dent. So let's be very clear is that, we get very happy with the fact that, we are independent, we have created a dent. But what is our dent? 750 million is the reach of television. Digital is still trying to get there. Digital is still trying to find its feet. The question is, will it find its feet or not? And there is a problem there also. A lot of this hate, a lot of this critique at mainstream media, since I've been in mainstream media, comes from, ye to kutta billi dikhate hain, ye to dikhate hain ki iska pair chhu diya. But who's watching? Who has said, I don't want to watch this? Do you think that mainstream media or digital media operate in a vacuum and say, hum to patrakarita karenge, we will only do proper journalism? Everybody is watching metrics, whether be it mainstream media, whether be it independent media. And unfortunately, the metrics in mainstream media, when I wrote a book, I was hopeful 10 years ago that no, when cable television data is wrong, like BARC data is wrong, so DTH data will tell us, no, people want to watch news. What DTH data told us is that people are watching even more Saap Siri Kutta Billi Alien in their homes. So it is a misnomer to believe that, BARC hai, so they are not telling us TAM ratings. And that is why generally people want to watch good news. That is absolutely bullcrap. And pardon my French, is because the lesson that you learn when you go into digital, you have no idea the kind of crap. You know why YouTube shut down its trending lists? Is because the trending started to show. They had to manually clamp down on the trending list because all sorts of obscenity was climbing onto the top. Do you want to know about the porn consumption in this country? Far, far ahead of independent media, chhod do mainstream media also. So you have to ultimately understand what the nation is also watching. And it is not good journalism. It is not even mainstream media. It is something far more ludicrous, dirty, and damaging. And that is why WhatsApp and Telegram are actually the real alternative medias at this point of time. And no good consumption is happening there. So, net, am I then saying is that digital is going to die off? No. Am I going to say that mainstream media will rule the roost? Hopefully not. But I think we have to understand what our limitations are at this point of time. We have a government that is clamping down on independent media. Every independent media organization, like mainstream media, which is losing on its revenues, independent media is struggling to find revenue sources. Had it not been so, people would have come, subscribed, paid, made these models financially viable. So if mainstream media is struggling to find a workable model, so is independent media struggling to find a workable model. So let's get that absolutely clear. The saddest statistic I want to leave you with. We do regular episodes on the Deshbhakt, and a lot of requests come to us, make this episode, make that episode. Over the last 3 years, we've been making episodes on Manipur. And on the 3rd anniversary of the violence in Manipur, we made another very detailed episode. This time we actually took the services of a reporter who is reporting from Manipur, got a great script in place. All the thousands of comments have no problems with the script. No factual inaccuracies. That turned out to be our worst performing episode of 2026. Manipur. Detailed episode, ground report, 3 years on. While if I sit and do an exit poll survey, who said what, and I'm drinking Pepsi because I'm enjoying the exit poll, and I'm drinking Pepsi and having popcorn on the video, that cracked 1 million within 2 hours. So ultimately, please understand, mainstream media means nothing but what the mainstream is watching. And what the mainstream is watching is what the mainstream media is displaying.
We have 30 seconds left. You can continue.
So that, with that thought, that the mainstream is reflecting the ideals and the consumption pattern of the mainstream, I want the other side to come and tell me, no, there is good consumption. There is healthy production of good content on alternative. There is a financially viable model. And of course, they have to prove to us that mainstream is in terminal decline, not loss of popularity or dent, terminal decline. That's also a very important word in this debate. I hope to hear more from them.
So we'll now be taking POIs, which are points of information. So does anyone from the panel have any POIs for that? Does anyone from the panel have any questions for the last speaker?
So a few things, Akash.
Yeah.
One is, I guess, your mainstream media avatar took over and you interpreted very loosely. The subject wasn't that digital media is better than mainstream media, although I can make that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
The subject was it is in terminal decline. I quote, you said that independent media is thriving, mainstream media is in decline. That is not the subject, whether independent media is thriving or not, although I can still make that point. So these are both straw man arguments, and I would urge the audience to completely strike those off the record because those are not what the subject is. And finally, the classic mistake that we make is a sociological critique that people should watch news more than they should watch porn. It has never happened in any society in the world at any time in any society anywhere in the world. Norway gave us Big Boss, which is one of the most civilized societies. So that is also not the subject, that people will watch news more than they will watch porn. They will always watch porn more than watch news. So that is also not the subject. The subject is the mainstream media is in terminal decline, which can be demonstrated by financials, audience reach, and what they're talking about, which I have the data for. These three, can you tell me how they are not in terminal decline? Not whether one is better than the other. That's not the subject.
It can also be interpreted, and I can also argue to you, is that maybe people are only watching porn and news has also become porn. From the sociological and from the argumentative point of view, are you trying to convince, let's take your points. Please convince the House that while mainstream media is struggling so bad, again, maybe you didn't like mainstream media, forgot the other part. If mainstream media is struggling, what is doing well, Abhinandan? What I want to know from you is if mainstream is struggling, if it is in terminal decline, what is it that is taking its position? That is my simple point.
Again, off topic. That is not the subject, but I'll humor
But
you.
Abhinandan,
I'll humor you and the house. I'll give you the answer. I can give you the example of News Laundry. I have 7 cases against me. I'm happy. I have been questioned for about 20 hours by the income tax officers. I'm still here, and I will be here. I continue to say what I say, and I don't feel fear. Those who do, they should explain why they do. So I can give you my example,
yeah.
and I can give you News Laundry's example. We ain't struggling. We didn't lay anyone off in COVID. We sent a reporter to Manipur for 22 days. Yes, it did not get as much, traction as when I said cricket is not a sport. It's a game for losers. We got more traction for that. But that's not the point. That is never the point of news. And I think that's the mistake most media professionals make. You are not chasing eyeballs, competing with any of the other things you spoke about. There will always be a sliver of the society that wants to listen to news. And most will want to watch Dabang. Garam, how many people have watched Garam Hava here? 1. How many have watched Dabang? All right, there. I've convinced you that the house is not interested in the other sociological aspects of human evolution or our state of mind. It is news in terminal decline. And just those 2 metrics are enough to prove it.
There is a sliver of people who want to watch news. Did you say that just now? Sliver of people who want to watch news. I mean, it's amazing, Abhinandan, that you are actually admitting to the other side, and then you're saying is that our motion is flawed. Abhinandan,
Always the case.
Abhinandan has been doing the right thing. I mean, we started off, before Deshbhakt, we started off with News Laundry. And had it been the traditional sense of the right thing or the rising thing, or the people watching news, or the mainstream in decline, then News Laundry would have been 50 times bigger than it is. The simple point that we are trying to debate today is that what is mainstream? And if it is not in terminal decline, I refuse to agree with you that if it is in decline, you have to tell me what is the other alternative. And if you're saying News Laundry is the alternative or Deshbhakt is the alternative, I am sorry, I will not accept it for the simple reason our numbers are nothing compared to what mainstream is. And I'll give you an example here also. Over the last few years, every few months you come across an SSR. Sushant Singh Rajput, in the middle of COVID, 4 mahina pura chala. Then Aryan Khan debate came. Then Seema Haidar from Pakistan came. Abhi TCS ka case chal raha hai. That is the power of mainstream media to shape narratives. Till the time that News Laundry or Deshbhakt are able to create a national narrative, which is, by the way, all of it is bunkus and bogus, but make people believe that what they are saying is right, till that point of time, mainstream media will work. The day Abhinandan creates a national headline, a national outrage over right or wrong, I will rest my case. But till the time the mainstream media continues to control the narrative, continues to survive, is it thriving? No, I'm not debating it's thriving. I'm not saying it's rolling in money either. But it continues to dominate what we think, what we consume, and people are still watching whoever is watching. And whatever is being watched for is being watched. Let's not forget, he talks about Big Boss. That is exactly what the 9 p.m. debates have become. Are you trying to tell me that the 9 p.m. debates were conducted in vacuum? That nobody was watching it?
That's the point I made at the beginning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sekhri and Mr. Banerjee.
For a while,
But I would have to stop this as we have more speakers who want to go ahead and share their insights. So next, I would like to call Mr. Vinod Sharma. Please to come on the podium, share his insights.
Frankly, when I got the invite in a formal sense, and the way the debate was formulated, I didn't want to say no because I had said yes already. Because for the simple reason that I don't think we are debating against each other. We are on the same side. It's just that our perception of what's happening is different. and our end objective is the same. I personally feel that Abhinandan Sekhri and my friend Deshbhakt, he's the true Deshbhakt in fact. There are so many other four Deshbhakts moving around masquerading across in India, that they have created a niche audience for themselves, that they are small yet influential in their own way. I've always held that big is not beautiful in journalism. Small is. And it makes a point. You made that huge show on Manipur. He does a show. There is a sticker on the refrigerator of at my home, which my wife has put. And she said, "We make news truthful." There's something like that. I pay to keep news free. She pays. She pays to all such channels. And I partake of what she selects. The reality is that I come from a stream of media where the owners have abdicated their responsibility and they have left the working journalist to the vagaries of power, so to speak. Power that wants to crush an independent media. They don't want a debate in this country. They don't want a serious debate in this country. And I think the biggest culprits for this situation are our viewers. They don't pay for news. Information is power, but nobody wants to pay for it. Newspapers, we are talking about mainstream media, legacy media, call whatever you want it. I mean, where in the world you get a newspaper for 5 rupees? Where in the world? The production cost of a newspaper is 25 to 30 rupees. And we made to sell it for 5 rupees. That makes our economic model so ineffective. In fact, self-defeating. Every single copy that is delivered at your doorsteps is at a loss of 20 rupees. Where will that money come from? From advertisement. And who will give the advertisement? The single biggest party in this country is one of the biggest advertisers today in this country. And most of the industrialists who advertise, you should know once they give, if somebody wants to advertise a swanky car product, an auto which has been newly launched, they will want to know what is the buying capacity of your readership. Can they buy my product? Do you know that why a murder in South Delhi is on page 1 and why a murder in East Delhi is on the inside pages? Because the guy with the buying capacity wants to read a murder. Even in death, there is a hierarchy, as we reported in newspapers. That is the biggest tragedy of journalism and mainstream journalism. Yet, in mainstream journalism, we have shining examples of great journalism. We still have a newspaper which for years has been a reference newspaper in our country, the name of which is The Hindu. Suhasini works for it. Can anybody say that she doesn't have integrity, that she's not doing a top-notch job in reporting foreign policy? But then how many people are reading foreign policy? That could be the big question. There are many people reading sports. And in sports, the coverage is excellent. Resources are there. Sports journalists get to travel a lot. Because with star sportsmen comes the drawing power. Again, they are the stars and not the reporters. Reporters aren't the stars anymore. We are living in reflected glory. And media, today's media, is in a sorry state insofar as its pursuit of truth relative truth, as they see as truth. Because there is nothing like universal truth. Your truth can be different from mine. Sometimes it's based on lived experience. Sometimes it is based on tutored experience. Sometimes it's based on reality, as we see it. The truth that Deshbhakt saw in Manipur is undeniable, is crying for attention. The tragedy of mainline journalism is that it is unable to respond in the same measure that matches the tragedy that has happened there. That is the biggest challenge before mainline media. And the singular entity that is responsible for it is the proprietor. He is under the government's thumb. He is taking instructions from the government. We hear that television channels and their shows are decided by someone sitting in a high office, and they even tell them which person to be called as a discussant and which person not to be called as a discussant. It's a fact. It's not happening for the first time, but in our history, but it is happening on a large scale. It hasn't ever it hasn't been ever happening at such a scale in our country as it is happening now. Insofar as mainstream media is concerned, we are not actually, unfortunately, we are not discussing the vernacular media and the Hindi media. It's huge. And what's happening there, you'd be shocked to know. The biggest consumption and the growth is of the vernacular press and the Hindi press, not as much of the English media. We do things to be honest to ourselves. I'm grateful that I have as my co-discussants today 2 young men who are cause for hope. But then who will take the baton from them? Where is the second line of leadership? Where is the good old teachers, I remember Jasdev Singh, the great commentator, in a speech that he gave at one of the conferences we organized. Satish was also there. And he said that he was a student of Melville de Mello. And he said that after every commentary, there'd be a discussion in the morning before the second day commentary. And there'd be huge debate whether a particular word that was used in a particular context was the correct word to be. That was the eye for detail. I once was called by my editor, Mr. Narayanan, and he said he was reading my copy and he said, Vinod, why do you have to use adjectives when you have so many facts in your copy? No flashy journalism, no adjectives, just the facts. Who cares about the facts now? And who decides what is the fact and what is it not? I am telling you that media will thrive, mainstream media will thrive, give total freedom to the working journalist, treat it like wildlife, let them into the beeherd, and when they come back with the game, you decide whether you want to serve it or not.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. Thank you so much. Before we open the floor for some more questions, I would want to let you all know that on your seat, you have a blue light cyan ballot paper. It's written pre-vote ballot paper. I would request you all with the pens that have been given. If not, you can ask somebody in front of you to please quickly mark your vote. So then we can even go ahead. Second of all, are there any questions from the panel? Because I'm sure we have some questions from the union. Okay, then we take one question from the audience and then we continue. Is there anybody in the audience who has a question? Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be in this room and particularly shocked by how Akash Banerjee is sitting on the side, which I didn't expect. So my question is to Akash Banerjee. You said the media is in decline right now, and that decline is creating a vacuum. Is it right?
the mainstream
Media is in decline right now, and that is creating a vacuum.
if it is in terminal decline, it should create a big vacuum. That's my
Okay, okay,
point.
okay. So, is it getting filled by independent media or anyone?
So, as Abhinandan very eloquently said, there is a sliver of people, there is a minority of people, there is maybe 10% of people who would like to watch. But these are conversations we'll do after the debate. Right now, if you have a question for Sir at this point of time,
Okay,
I'll answer this question after the debate.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Vinod Saab, you're such a senior figure in the profession. You've seen it all. Is this a moment of cynicism for you or optimism for you? You know, there's been such an onslaught of technology, and there's just this great mix in the manner in which everything's delivered. And
Is not by choice, it's by accident. But somebody had to take a position. In fact, this issue can be argued either way. As I said that on my left are two young men and farther down is a young lady, They are doing an excellent job. They are not an embarrassment to my profession. Looking at them, I don't think I am diseased. Very healthy. I feel I'm very healthy. But the reality is that the moment I walk out of this room, this hall, and I'd come face to face with the worst kind of bastardization of debate in my country, the major contributor to which is the mainline media, mainstream media. Why they are doing it, I don't know. Because I have seen, look, till the time Prannoy Roy was leading in the NDTV, it was creating stars. If Ravish Kumar till today is relevant, the contributor to his success is also Prannoy Roy. He gave him the platform. Let major newspaper owners, let major television station owners, let major media moguls take a position which is independent from that of what is dictated by the government. Some of the best journalism happened when Indira Gandhi was running amok. When was the rise of Mr. Arun Shourie, may I ask you? If you remember, which are the most remembered pieces of his are Indira Gandhi as commerce. That was the headline in Indian Express. Can you write a headline like that today? No, you cannot. And the fact is that the Sunday newspaper became an iconic magazine. M.J. Akbar was the iconic editor. The state of play for him today is less said the better, but he had his great period in journalism. It all happened during so-called regimes that were, I would say, not entirely democratic. Indira Gandhi's emergency was most repressive. I started my journalism career in All India Radio when emergency was there, and I used to calculate data, how much of propagation of 15-point and 5-point program has been done in music shows, in sports. And this just Dev Singh got very angry with me, that there is not enough such data to show there is enough propagation of these two, 5-point and 15-point in sports commentary. And he's the director of sports. He became very angry with me, just Dev Singh. ये तुमने कैसे लिखा? मैंने कहा सच है, आप नहीं कर रहे, अच्छी बात है. Later, when I used to speak to him, he used to be very happy. But everybody had fallen in line, and when L.K. Advani said, they were asked to bend and they crawled. So they knew the nature of the beast, the current regime, they know the nature of the beast, that if you ask them to bend, they will start crawling. And everybody is crawling. That's the issue.
Right. Thank you so much for your answer. But in the interest of time, we would now like to call upon Shri Tarun Vijay to speak against the motion.
Thank you, everyone. I enjoyed all the words of wisdom said here. And, I'm very much inclined to begin from a wonderful mainstream newspaper who shouted from the rooftop that it is a newspaper for the country's soul and it represents, it's very objective. very fearless, very independent. And it was known to mock at one of the women ministers with a famous or infamous headline, Auntie National. Auntie National. I think you all remember that. And it would publish the colors of the sari of the person who was ruling that state, and will refuse point blank anything happening on the other side of the ideology, which was not liked by the power in Calcutta. Suddenly, it has turned as if it never had those headlines, and it's a saffron newspaper today, completely. That's a very interesting twist of the turn, that how everyone wants to take the instructions of someone, provided that someone is a person of their choice. Sabko hukum chahiye. And they want to fill up the coffer of the proprietor very happily. Depends that who is the person who is giving the instruction. I have seen the so-called very, very independent and brave journalism areas, those periods which were being talked about here. And I was refused to be given a PIB accreditation card, while the People's Democracy correspondent got it. So I have seen that period when how independent, objective, and fearless regime of the journalism was. And the other thing is that when you say the media is in terminally decline, which media you are talking about? And when you say mainstream media, I know D.N. Bays Barua, he was editor of Sentinel, also the president of Editors Guild, and one of the good friends said that the mainstream media in India is defined only by one sentence. The media that caters from Noida to Connaught Place is a mainstream media. You hardly see anything that is non-political, anything that covers the sensitivities and the pains and sufferings of those who are in the Tirap, who are in Changlang, who are in Longding. Never. We never see an interview of a person who has done something great in those areas, as if those areas do not belong to India. We have never seen a single so-called news, mainstream newspaper, which is the Noida to Connaught Place newspaper, covering the Nambardar of Demchok. How are they living at the Nala? How they are living where the Indus enters India? And when Mr. Jaishankar was making a statement in Parliament, I was in Demchok in minus 26 degree. I called him from there that I'm sitting here, but things are very, very different from what's happening in the Parliament. Which newspaper has ever covered a person who may not be a political person, but is very, very important for the health, for the future, for the present of the country? Hardly anyone, because they want good money, they want good name, they want a byline, but with less. Pardon me? Maybe Hindu. Yeah, I can believe that. I can believe that. I missed it, sorry. But when I came to Panchajanya, my editor said that you have to read two newspapers. And one was being edited by C.R. Irani. I know, I don't think where is that paper, but to improve your understanding, the second was Hindu. When I went to Chennai, and Ram invited me to Hindu, and I visited every single corner of Hindu, and I had the honor to address the entire staff of Hindu as editor of Panchajanya. So those were the times when we were talking to each other, but not now. But so things are very, very different now. When you are speaking about the mainstream media, you have to define that why mainstream media is not so much respected in our homes. And believe me, many of us would never like to see the new channels. Never. We don't even watch it, because you see nothing except sermons and sermons and sermons. They collect a few of the wise people on their channels, and they try to sermonize them. They don't allow them to speak. They have to speak, they have to speak, and they have to speak, and they don't want them to open up and say what they want to say. There was a time when newspapers would publish news. Now, every news begins with an editorial. Every news. And if you see the byline, you can understand that what the content of the news would be. You don't have to go to the second or third paragraph. So editorializing the news is one of the things that we have to think about. Still, I think that we are not doing so bad because all the newspaper proprietors are in good health and they are publishing what we are sending them in a very nice way. So that kind of a media is something that we have to think about. The death of the editor is one other thing. Girilal Jain was one of my good friends. I don't say that friends because he was such a senior person. And people knew that who is the editor of a newspaper. Who is the editor of a newspaper? And the editor would honestly write the editorials also, the edit page things also. I have been to the northern area in Pakistan and many other parts of the region. People still, there was a time when people would buy a newspaper to read the comments of the editor. The newspapers were sold by the name of the editor. Who is the editor? What he would have written. You may not agree with him, but the power of the editor was supreme. The editor ran the newspaper. The editor decided about the newspaper, not the other person. Now, the death of the editor is one of the greatest tragedies in our times when nobody knows who is editing what and only the proprietors are doing the job and they are going here and there. But the person who is deciding the direction of the newspaper is not there. The other thing is that the independence and objectivity of the newspaper, that is quite debatable because if a citizen has a political opinion and that's the reason he is a voter, he votes for this party or that party and this candidate or that candidate. Every journalist is also a politician. He has to decide which party is doing good. Maybe very honestly, maybe very objectively, he has to decide that which party is doing good or not good. And then he has to take a stand.
Thank you so much.
Stand is now missing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijay.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay, for that insightful speech. Could we please have Mr. Pachauri come up from the proposition and give his views? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delhi Union, for inviting me. This House believes that India's mainstream media is in terminal decline. I support the proposition. And one thing which we have not discussed so far, we have discussed the craft of journalism and the media, the definition of media. My younger colleagues have talked about that. My older colleagues have talked about what is missing in the media today and how it can be put back. Terminal decline. We also talked about some data points. So I had been the interface with the Confederation of Indian Industry for NDTV for about 15 years. And part of my job was basically to study the media business. Naturally, we are going to go and meet the CEOs. I was the member of the CEOs conference of CII for more than a decade. So I used to keep some data each time I go there. And today I dug out into that data, which has been lying with me all this while. In 2013, the total media and entertainment industry, funnily the CII also calls entertainment part of the media, which is now I think they should drop media and just do entertainment. So the M&E industry was about 1,61,000 crore, out of which TV was 72,000 crore. And news, which we are discussing today because media we are talking about news media. News media at that time was 4,000 crore, which is 2.4% of the entire M&E industry. You're talking about decline, the decline started there. And I had, at every meeting, I had told the people, the CEOs and the proprietors who Vinodji talked about, that you guys are in decline, your business model is failing. Today, the total industry, if you look at 25 top listed companies in India, they used to be 15,000 crore in 2013, now they are 18,000 crore. The increase is only 21%, while the country's GDP has gone up by about 100 or 110%. So you are like 1/5. The mainstream media is growing 1/5 at the GDP of the country. And these are the top 25 listed companies. I'm keeping Hindu and the Times of India out of this because they are not listed. Now, the total profits. In 2013, the profits had plummeted to 142 crore, which is not even 1% of the total revenue of the entire industry. And I used to tell people in my office when I joined the Prime Minister's office that this is why the media is against you, because their profits have gone down. I actually once asked, I don't talk about private conversations, but I think this is a good time to talk about it. I once asked the finance minister of the country that why don't you create a corpus to help media as you have done in the telecom industry and the auto industry. And the money was only 1,500 crore at that time. So if we had thrown that kind of money at the media at that time, everyone would have been in profits. But he said, no, it's very controversial and all that. And have you talked to the PM about it? I said, no, I'm talking to you first. If you said yes, then I'll propose it as a media advisor to the Prime Minister that we should have a corpus to help the media industry. Well, never happened. Today, the situation is that the total profit of these entire 25 listed companies of India is 1,632 crore, which is from that time 1,000% up. But only one company, the Sun TV, takes away 1,700 crore out of this profit. So if you look at the average, every industry, every media company, and these huge buildings they have built in Noida and wherever, they are running in serious losses. The Republic has not made any money since it launched. I'll take names because I've run out of enemies in this city. The Indian Express first sold its express towers in Bombay because it was unable to run properly. And now it has left the building which was given to it at Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg because the rent was higher than running the operations of the company. And the same has happened to Hindustan Times. These are the top people. So that's how bad, how terminal the situation is. Now we come to the debate which was going on that what is the mainstream media and what is not the mainstream media. So we go to the online. Everyone says, no, everyone is making money online, making money online. The media has shifted from newspapers and television to online, and from online to social media. Some points, data points here. The total ad revenue of online in India is about 46,000 crore. 46 to 50,000 crore. If you ask ChatGPT, they will tell you, we don't have the exact data because all these are private companies and there's nothing published. I'm talking to the AI generation and the ChatGPT generation. Out of which, Google and Meta, they make 38,000 crore. 75% of the entire online ad revenue in this country. Then you add Amazon, Microsoft, Twitter, LinkedIn, another 5,000 to 8,000 crore. So 82 to 94% of the ad revenue on online is not Indian. is all going out. So this is the situation of the terminalness of our mainstream media. So we are totally in the ICU. So what do you need? We need blood infusion. And where that's coming from? The blood infusion, as someone pointed out, is coming from the governments. TV18 and their main channel, which makes the money actually. The only channels which make money in India are basically CNBC, Aaj Tak, and in English, it used to be NDTV for the longest time. And I don't think they are making any money now because it's the 10th quarter that the NDTV is in losses after takeover by Adani. So this is the situation of terminalness of this thing. So where the blood infusion comes from? 2 days ago, Indian Express and Times of India ran full-page advertisements about Somnath. The same ad on 2 pages. Page 1, page 7, and in Times of India was page 11. Same ad, same copy. That's the blood infusion. That's how these companies are running today. I was talking about CNBC and TV18. About 40% of CNBC's ad revenue today are from paid sponsorships. And over and above that, about 20% is from government ads. So when you have the country's largest media company running on government handouts, I mean, is it terminal or not? So that's it. About going forward, so this is how the situation in the media is. And from this kind of a media, Vinodji is talking about the proprietors. I've seen the proprietors from the other side of the table. They are all bhigi billis. All of them.
So we would...
Sir, PM को बोल दीजिए हमारे conclave में आने के लिए. Because they've already sold the conclave on the name of the Prime Minister will be attending. Everyone, each one of them. And it's shameless. I used to be like, as a working journalist, I used to be like ashamed of my profession. And it's just the mainstream media which is terminal. It is the vocation of journalism is gone terminal because of that. Because we cannot stand up to these people. And by the way, on online also, there's a lot of money from the government. Every state government has India has 1,700 government apps on which your birth certificate and your death certificate and everything you do in between in your lifetime is governed by these apps.
So
And
we
the
request you to conclude, please.
Okay, and the government of India doesn't own any of these apps. They are all in Silicon Valley. We have outsourced the governance to these apps. So why I'm doing this and why I came here? Number one, I got a very lovely call from someone that please come and talk about it. So I'll say I'll go and talk about it. And secondly, why I came here? I came to journalism, and that's why I came here. I came to journalism because I read something from Sahir Ludhianvi. जुल्मी को जो ना रोके वो शामिल है जुल्म में, कातिल को जो ना टोके वो कातिल के साथ है. I'm here to tokify the qatil. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
We'll now be taking questions from the audience.
Hi, my name is Kunal. I had a question regarding the initial two speeches that happened regarding the terms of debate. And it arises from the same notion. So one was talked about the narrative power and other was regarding the economics of it. My question is that when you look at the terminal decline, at what are you actually measuring here? Because media by itself, the power of media is to create narratives, as Akash Banerjee was saying. And in that context, when we talk about the audience that is watching this mainstream media, it is not audience like us. I watch Akash Banerjee actually. It is the audience that by its very starting of the day opens the newspaper, and that's how they conceptualize the reality in this world. Regarding that, how do you then argue that there is any sort of decline in that? Given because when you talk about the economics of it, that has always been the case between the relation between the state and the media which favors the state. Even if the economics in the capitalist system is broken, the state will still support the media because the media serves the narrative that the state wants it to serve. So, in that context, how is the mainstream media in decline, given that authoritarianism is not in decline?
So, couple of things. I mean, I won't give very long answer. I'll give it after Suhasini spoken. But the data, the statistics, even Pankaj said, there is a decline. One can say it was always, it's like saying, the world has always been violent, so Iran is fine or Gaza is fine. No, there is an uptick. Violence has gone up. Similarly, demonstrable numbers, I'm not even going to argue with. I have them here. Pankaj quoted them. NDTV's 10th straight quarter, 10 crore loss. Network 18, I have the consolidated numbers, but if you take news away, it is a disaster. And also they sell these complex bouquets. आप हमारे इस चैनल पे डालो, वहां 10 ad free कर देंगे. As far as audience numbers are concerned, even those demonstrably are in decline. In fact, if you go to Ravish's YouTube channel and you go to Arnab's YouTube channel, it's not even comparable. So demonstrable numbers, I don't even think it's a debate. One can see it in black and white. Whether it makes a difference or not, I can talk about after this. And I can tell you about that, because that is what is worth debating. Otherwise, we are just saying, I'm saying 0, you're saying 1. You can see that.
See, this whole narrative debate is all bunkum. Because whoever is paying the piper is deciding the tune. And as I just demonstrated to you, that the government is actually paying either directly through the government or indirectly through their cronies in the business. There are cases of advertisements being dropped, sponsorships being dropped, or that. So this kind of, the world has never seen, after Italy, when Silvio Berlusconi was the prime minister, and he's in jail now, by the way, so there is hope. He
Apologies, sir,
captured
we'll have to move
about
on to the next question.
60% of Italian media by this crony capitalism and by government. And even he was thrown out. And now Melanie is there, so let's see.
So we'll be taking one more question from the audience.
Yeah, we'll just take, thank you. We'll take that question right after we have our most patient speaker, Ms. Suhasini, to please give a speech. Thank you.
It's okay. Women are known for their patience, but they also know they have the last word. I want to start, and I know that we're all short on time, but I do want to start by just quickly, because this thought is fresh in our head, of asking our learned opponents that when they talk about advertising, when they talk about the piper pays the tune, why have they decided that the only person who will pay for news, for credible news, is the advertiser? What about all of you? Each of you takes a newspaper, or you have a subscription. Each of you is the piper, actually speaking. And I say this because, like you, I have studied the numbers. And for the numbers, I would say, I can talk about the newspaper that I work with, The Hindu. Our paid digital subscription was up 14% this year. So I would say, amidst all the gloom and the doom that we have heard this afternoon, अंधेरे को मिटाने के लिए एक चिराग काफी होता है. So I will be that chirag, I will be the Karan. As Abhinandan has put it, his Mahabharat skills are a little poor, or I would say that actually, since mainstream media is still here, perhaps we're a little more like Bhishma or like Yudhishthir, both of whom, on both sides of that debate, both of whom who outlasted everybody else in the field. I rise, as you know, against the motion today, because neither mainstream media nor mainstream journalism is actually in decline. This is the best time ever to be a journalist. Only the media that doesn't follow mainstream journalism is making itself redundant, non-essential, and peripheral, and therefore that will decline. You may ask, am I trying to reinvent what this title has said? And I'd say no. Today at the Hindu, I write, my word appears in the newspaper, a longer version of my story appears online. I then make a video about it, which goes on YouTube and a number of other channels. I want to ask, am I mainstream media or am I not? Are you mainstream media, Abhinandan? So I'm going to answer that question for you. What do you mean by mainstream journalism and therefore what I believe is mainstream media? It has 5 characteristics, so bear with me. The first is that it does journalism that seeks to inform, educate, and occasionally entertain, not the other way around. It's journalism that reports from the ground, invests in a network of reporters, and travel budgets for them. Journalism that believes, and this is important, the news is not an industry, it is not a business. It is not the news business. It is a service, and a public service at that. It seeks to hold power to account, questions the government that is elected and how it spends funds paid for by taxpayers, you and me. When it questions the opposition or questions activists, that too is guided by public interest and the public's right to know, not as a means to balance the criticism. That means when I want to criticize the government, I don't need to bring in the opposition to criticize the government. I will hold the government to account. Fourth, journalism that is not a side operation or another business for the owners or something that is event-based or election-based, but requires the kind of 24-hour commitment and 365-day resources that only mainstream media can provide. Fifth, journalism that refuses to do scripted interviews and asks questions that are inconvenient because, as we all know, and Mr. Orwell said it 100 years ago, journalism is printing what someone else doesn't want printed. Everything else is public relations. So there's good news and there's bad news for my worthy opponents. The good news is that according to this criterion, you all qualify for mainstream media. The bad news, of course, is that they may actually lose this debate. So, I do want to talk. It's not as if I'm only Karn and I'm only Alice in Wonderland living in a world where I don't understand what the challenges are. We bring out a newspaper every day. We have a website. We bring out videos every day. We understand those challenges. There's the challenge from authoritarian leadership that don't just want friendly media. They want no media. The word media means mediating a message. They don't want their message mediated. They don't want press conferences, no unscripted interviews. They want direct social media. I just speak on my social media channel, but without any fact-checking of that. And there is an active degradation every day of media credibility. The media is called fake news, news traders, prostitutes. So if you see any resemblances to any person I know, I would say it is all very, very coincidental. Second is the challenge of corporate ownership, and the speakers before me have spoken about it. I know this is a debate, but I'm not debating them here. Corporate ownership, again, we want to vilify the businessman, we want to vilify the owner, but it isn't every owner who is like this. It is the owner that has other interests which will allow them to overshadow their news agenda. If you're not like that, it doesn't mean that the mainstream media is therefore corrupted. This is not to be conflated by business owners who are willing to invest in news that is a public service. Also, this is not to say that running media must be a loss-making enterprise, as my worthy opponents insist on saying again and again and again. Good journalism has to be made by journalists who are paid to do the service, and therefore media is more like a trust, whether it is owned by the state, a business, a consortium, or a family. If you can not make it work, it doesn't necessarily mean the system is broken. The third, we all understand the political pressure challenge, both at the center and the state. We have today governments that have turned media advertisements, mainstream and otherwise, into a system of political patronage. If you do a story the government doesn't like, they can, and they do, including to us, cancel advertisements, tenders, sponsorships. And remember, this is again public money I'm talking about. It's meant to go to those who will reach audiences and carry credibility. Even editorial pages today are treated like advertorials. Politicians who rarely give interviews love the unchallenged space of an opinion piece. And they prefer the unspecialized, therefore the uncritical eye of an influencer. In India, for example, the Prime Minister's office in the last election scheduled more interviews for non-journalistic podcasts than ever before. And the Ministry of External Affairs, where I cover the news, now invites influencers from different countries instead of journalists. They are taken to tourist destinations across India instead of covering the news, because bringing journalists would mean real questions. And the fourth challenge, and I'm surprised we haven't really spoken about this, that is AI, artificial intelligence, and what it will do to journalists, replicating some of the media functions and even imitating all of them. I can give an AI command today, and I could have written my entire debate with it. I could have had a video of me saying it, in fact, in 10 different languages with my voice. But I'm taking the liberty of saying that you would, however, prefer me to deliver this in person, for the very same reasons that you will continue to support mainstream media. So I come back to my basic point. In fact, actually, I could have left this debate right after the first speaker, because my worthy opponent, Mr. Sekhri, somewhere in his speech said, my producer has now left to join the Hindu. I don't think anybody leaves to join an industry in decline. So let's leave it over there. But, ladies and gentlemen, I stand by the thing that there isn't that much difference between all of us here on the stage today in terms of the journalism we do and the fact that we believe that we are part of that mainstream of journalism, what it was supposed to be. The past few decades have already shown us where the future lies when it comes to AI, for example. Digital adaptation, all of us now can use a cell phone, thank God. We don't use typewriters, we use computers. Digital news publication, all of us now use digital for news publishing. Digital news research, this is the age of AI. But the fourth is the real reason why I believe mainstream media is not in decline, and that is digital news authentication. The next era, the one where many of you younger people will be part of the era of authenticity. We have spent enough years looking at things we know are fake, but we cannot verify those. Time is going to get scarcer. People will tire of trying to navigate news directly. They will want authentic, contextualized news that gives the weightage that you need. E-papers, for example, at the Hindu, are actually getting more popular than we ever actually thought they would be. More than the website where all the news is there, an e-paper that shows you what is page 1, where is the sports page, makes you read all kinds of news and not just some algorithm-friendly one. The second reason for my optimism, AI cannot compete with the essentials of journalism. First-hand observation, verification by giving weightage to different verified sources, continuous real-time following the story and sources, and institutional memory that comes from non-recorded sources. AI does not generate information from non-recorded sources. The third reason, news, ladies and gentlemen, is not a taste. It is a nutrient. It is not meant to make you feel good or reinforce your beliefs or laugh or look good. Algorithms will eventually deliver an unsatisfactory feeling, and my colleagues and opponents have spoken about this. It's the equivalent of binge watching. All of you have done it. All of you know how it makes you feel. Compare it to the feeling of going for a walk or reading a book, or the morning newspaper, or a website, or going to the nightly broadcast, and over time, you will notice the difference. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, in a world where seeing is no longer believing, where hearing is no longer believing, I listened to an entire interview of Meryl Streep talking about something, only realizing about 2 minutes in that this was not her, but just her voice. Knowing something is authentic is the only way to truly believe. Like all of you today may not know about what life was before, you want to put organic, not chemically treated food into your system. You will also want authentic information and news for your brain. Caesar said, Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. It'll soon be Veni vidi, verificavi. No, that means verificavi means I came, I saw, I verified. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, mainstream journalism and mainstream media, as I defined it, is not declining and will not decline. Thank you.
While we're counting the votes, we will be taking POIs both from the audience and panels. So first, are there any POIs from the panel?
54 crore. That's the number of smartphones in India. Okay. The total number of publications in India is 1,10,017 or something. That's what it is. Publications like the Hindu, more power to you. And globally, New York Times, The Guardian, where you get your inspiration from, are very minuscule. Okay? We are talking about a population of billion plus, whatever. What you are talking about was basically aberration in the media landscape. I've been part of that aberration, worked with NDTV for 15 years, 7 years with the BBC, and always, we always thought that because we are doing the right thing, which we're doing now, it is, what do you say, क्या बोलते हैं, ऊंट की वो जीरा, ऊंट के मुंह में जीरा, kind of a thing. Okay? So while not taking away anything from what the Hindu is doing, I just want to make it clear for the audience here, for the house, that whatever you said was right about your publication. But when we look at the whole industry at large, I think media, mainstream media is in decline. Uska liver खराब है, उसका दिल खराब है, और अब धीरे-धीरे दिमाग भी खराब होता जा रहा है.
All right. Some of these rebuttals are not about anything I have said, so I will leave those aside. But I will beg to differ from the idea that we are an aberration. In fact, if you ask me, the Indian landscape is filled across this country with media that is putting out what I consider mainstream journalism. And as I said, I believe that so many of us are all on exactly that side. Would you say a website like The Wire is not mainstream media today? They cover every story. I think what we all forget is in times where we think that the government is trying to subvert the entire media landscape, that eventually all is not lost with this idea that people are doing what the government says. It is only when people say what the government says that we will actually see that kind of decline that you're talking about. I don't think that is a fact. I think every kind of story, every kind of rebuttal is out there. Now it's a question of what you wish to see. If your algorithm is showing you only media that reinforces this belief that the mainstream media is in decline, then I have to say, change your phone, change your algorithm, Pankaj, because actually speaking, and I can see people from this audience saying it too, that when they want to get maybe not unfiltered, but filtered news, which is actually done in a responsible way, which means both sides of the story, which means holding power to account, and which also means writing news that interests people. I don't think that they are starved. I don't think anyone's starved of information. So I'll leave it there. I believe that this idea that we have to keep going by how much advertising you get, or how many eyeballs you get, or how many sticky eyeballs you get, and whether it's a year-on-year increase, that itself is the myth. 8 billion people in the world means 16 billion or thereabouts eyeballs. It doesn't mean that every news channel and everybody is going to look for that same prize. You get 1,000 people in 1,000 people view your video. Frankly,
I do subscribe to your newspaper, not Hindu, but Hindu Business Line, because
you should do both.
Yeah. Is there a discount?
So yeah, I did want to make that point. All of you have said 25 rupees is what it takes to get a newspaper out. Every newspaper is putting it out at 5 rupees, therefore requires more advertising, and therefore is dependent on advertising. The Hindu sells at 15 rupees, and we may not be making huge profits year on year,
but we're certainly breaking even.
So
Right.
that's it. So I just wanted to say, when I said about aberration, people keep asking me and must be asking you also, people abroad, basically, nicely. Which are the papers? Which are the papers we should go to? And my main thing is, you look at the Hindu website, listen to the Wire, but then again that whole echo chamber kind of a thing happens. So you see a lot of, because they are not getting good news. There is a market out there which should give people balanced news, which they are not getting.
Yeah. Pankaj,
But balanced news is not allowed.
can I reverse? Yeah.
You see, it's a fact that Hindu was always the preferred newspaper of people who wanted really news, who wanted to understand issues. I remember that when we transitioned from readership and net paid circulation competition to readership competition, and that was essentially triggered by the losses that we were incurring by increasing our circulation. And so they changed the competition. They said, who has a higher readership? That one newspaper is read by how many people? And that kind of calculation they arrived at. Times of India and Hindustan Times in Delhi. And during that period, I had many people telling me, ki, the next generation readers are preferring Hindu. And I asked why. He said, they are the people who want to appear for competitive examination. Here was a newspaper. Frankly, Hindu doesn't carry any news which is not double-checked or cross-checked. They are very thoroughly written. They are very thoroughly researched. And if there is a problem with the story, they upfront, they own up the mistake, unlike many others. So that is why it is perhaps the only reference newspaper we still have in our country. And you're lucky to be working for them.
No, they're lucky to
have you. It works both ways. And I agree with you that when the competition is going to be with Hindu, so there is hope. There is some model which can be followed. But one often says that the Guardian newspaper, which is a pro-labor newspaper, and it survived in which manner? How? There was a Scott Foundation in which they would invest the people of trust. And that money made by the Scott Foundation, the trust, whatever, that money was plowed back into the newspaper so that it could continue with its editorial policy, preferred editorial policy, and yet have a viability. That model has to be struck somewhere in India.
Right. Thank you so much for your insights. We will now be having questions from the union, and the first question is going to be asked by Farhan Karan, the Under Secretary General of the union.
Hi, good afternoon. My question is directed to Mr. Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, I'm a big fan of Deshbhakt. You have described yourself as a capitalist, and in your speech itself, acknowledged the limitation of independent media's reach compared to mainstream giants. Now, given that major media conglomerates such as Adani's AMG Media Networks and Reliance Network 18 continue to consolidate ownership and operate at even a loss, does this not suggest that the true threat to independent journalism is not the decline of mainstream media, but rather its monopolization and transformation into tools of corporate and political power, making its continued existence more dangerous than its potential decline?
So, first and foremost, no fans. That's half the problem of this nation. Becoming fans of people. But appreciate your watching the channel. Listen, the point is, there is always going to be enough and more media in a democratic nation, no matter how much a capitalist might try to acquire media. So that shouldn't have bothered us. Unfortunately, the problem is that you have capital that is acquiring media. On the other hand, independent media, and this is so funny, is because, just about 2 years ago, we were told that, oh, you guys don't matter, you guys continue to bark, that's not an issue. Now the problem is the bark has started to bite. And therefore, even independent media is coming under attack. So is independent media making a dent? Yes. But is independent media going to challenge mainstream media? or push mainstream media into terminal decline? No, because there is financial, there is governance, and there is audience issues related to that. Our hope is that if we don't have to get subsumed and taken over or shut down, enough number of people have to watch, just like what was being discussed as Hindu. And this whole contentious point is Hindu an outlier, an exception. Can it become more of a rule that people are consuming more of this content so that people have the ability to say, "Nahi, I will do the right thing. I will do good journalism. People will watch me. I will find ways of sustenance." Just last point, we started Deshbhakt. We said we are going to be subscriber based only as News Laundry. We couldn't exist. We had to go to advertising, which they haven't taken till now, but we have, because we couldn't get the subscription model, crack it. We couldn't do it. It's very difficult. So they are also an outlier of getting only being subscriber driven. That needs to change. This needs to become rule, regular, not an exception.
Understood. On that, I mean, yeah, and I think it will become the rule. Just two things, and each time I hear that it was always like this, it's misleading, because everything was always like this. I mean, civilization has always been like this. So when we say capital had influence on media, if you read Piketty's book Capital, where he has taken the example of, I think, 6 or 7 countries, the concentration of wealth in the fewest hands is now. Concentration of wealth today is more than it was during kings and queens. I don't think we realize it. And it is getting worse with the big 7 tech owning everything. So it is not always the same. It is like I used to like Delhi, and even when I went to Bombay, everyone said, Delhi is a village, Bombay is cosmopolitan. I said, bullshit, Bombay is not cosmopolitan. Because when I went to Bombay, I went as a reporter for India Today. And I said something about Bal Thackeray. He was alive back then in 99. And the accountant of India Today said, that talk may be okay in Delhi. You don't talk like that in Bombay. You'll be in trouble. I was like, my accountant is threatening me. In Delhi, that was unthinkable, because there is a goon every corner to beat up the other. And that is a good thing. Similarly, it is not okay for 7 to have all the wealth. So it is not always the same. Therefore, it is a bigger danger. And secondly, when it comes to outliers, I agree with him, and I agree with Pankajji. We are discussing an industry. People are still going into newspaper printing. Dyes are still being made. But print is on the decline as a concept. People are still going into making cables. But wireless is the future. So the inevitability of the macro level data cannot be wished away.
Hello everyone, my name is Athar. I'm a member of the Delhi Union, and my question is directed to Mr. Pankaj Pachauri. So, sir, you've worked across very different eras of India journalism, from the BBC and India Today in the early 1990s and early 2000s, to NDTV at the height of Indian news, and later in Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's office. During much of that time, mainstream journalism was still widely viewed as a credible public institution. However, today the media landscape is shaped by social media outrage cycles, AI-generated misinformation, and deepfakes, which you've commented a lot about. And in your view, what are the biggest differences between journalism in the golden era and now? And secondly, do you believe that public trust in mainstream media can be restored?
One thing, which the less lack of time, I'll tell you a question. Public trust. Today, India is number 1. And again, talking about Piketty and the difference between the wealth creation, and India is number 1 in YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Snapchat. We are their largest subscriber. We are number 2 on LinkedIn and number 4 on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. These all companies together today have a market capitalization of above $20 trillion, which is 4 times India's GDP. हम तो 5 ही नहीं हुए अभी. कब से वेट कर रहे हैं? वो चलता रहता है. These people are now new states. They are states and they are ruling the world out of China. Because China has its own LinkedIn, its own YouTube, its own Weibo, and all those platforms. So these are the super states. And when, coming to your question, the trust, when Mark Zuckerberg comes to India, meets half of the cabinet, and everyone is trying to meet him, and Bill Gates, I know a number of cabinet ministers who asked a friend of mine who used to work for Bill Gates कि हमारे बच्चे की शादी में बुला दो उसको. So this is the biggest thing kind of thing. So when Mark Zuckerberg says, Mark Zuckerberg said very clearly that we are not in the business of talking truth to power. So that's the answer of trust and credibility. Yes. When what's his name, Elon Musk, when he talks about the same thing, that we are not in the business of journalism. So now the funniest thing is that the richest people in the world are being subscribed by the poorest people in the world. And they are what they are because of us. Because they show on their P&L every year, and I read some of them, that we have 3 billion, subscribers, out of which 500 million are from India. So these people who are running the largest corporations in the world, they don't believe that what they are running is media. And News Laundry and Deshbhakt and so many people like you are thinking that we will be part of this mainstream because this is the new mainstream. It's not the new mainstream. It's the old thing. So what the government of India is doing to the local media, they are doing to the global media. I've been to some international conferences on this. And if you think that they are trustworthy, I'll just give you one personal example. In 2014, my Twitter account had 214,000 kind of, followers. I was number 11 in the list in India. Yeah. And now it's 193. I picked it up with the head of the Twitter here in India, who had come to interview me. And I said, what the hell is going on? She said, that's not in my hand. So somewhere sitting in... No. Somewhere sitting in California is deciding what is happening in India, which story goes up, whether Deshbhakt gets his, million views, whether News Laundry is, this thing. So we have been now, again, this is divide and rule. We have been divided. Earlier we were divided by the British and all the colonial powers. Now we are being divided in echo chambers. So in my echo chamber, I'm the boss. So he gets a million views, he says, I'm the boss. No, but it's not going out of your echo chamber. So that's how the world is being run today when we talk about the media. And no one has the guts to talk against these people because everyone wants Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg in their daughter's wedding.
In fact, do any of you know something significant happened on Instagram day before yesterday? Does anyone know what? End-to-end encryption is over after he had committed that it will not be. So to the point that Pankaj was making, it is being decided at a level which is way beyond. So it's not always been like this.
Thank you to all the members of the panel for their amazing insights. Really love the California points.
Yeah, we'll take the last two questions and we close today. So any audience members? Thanks. So we'll take the green shirt, forward the gray shirt, and then I'll keep recognizing them.
First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful debate. I think one of the few things that I wanted to ask, I have two questions. One is that an issue which was not discussed is that how Mr. Pankaj said about the infusions. The government keeps on making infusions. How do you explain to me the failure of Doordarshan? Because when Mr. Banerjee talks about narrative building, major countries who have major news agencies like Reuters, Guardian, BBC, Al Jazeera, why are they authentic? Even in today's world, when we talk about proprietorship, we talk about capitalism, why are they authentic enough? And why does India, even if a private media house is not authentic enough? And secondly, when you talk about the Prime Minister's office calling non-journalists for interviews and for that. Why do you think the government now wants to favor non-journalists? Is it because the journalists today now only want to talk about the historicity of Jhalmuri instead of concepts? Because when Ms. Suhasini talks about truth holding power to account, if a journalist in mainstream media talks about Jhalmuri, do we not consider it a terminal decline? And when we say that if media is terminally declining, why we still trust Reuters, why we still trust BBC, why we still trust Al Jazeera?
To begin with, you have to differentiate between all those agencies you spoke about. Yes, the BBC is funded by the government, but increasingly BBC International or BBC World as it's known needs advertising to work. Secondly, Al Jazeera is very credible for many stories. It is not seen as credible for stories about Qatar. So if there's a story coming out of Qatar, you will not see the same. So Doordarshan around the same. And your third point, I would say the Jhalmuri story is important. I think it should be covered in a very serious way. If your prime minister is going to campaign in a state, firstly, as we talk about things that never happened before, prime ministers didn't in the old days go and campaign in state elections in this way. But if he is paying attention to it, and it would be extremely, I think, high-handed for any media organization. And I can tell you, I'm very grateful for all the things said about the Hindu today. But the Hindu doesn't see itself as an anti-government or anti-establishment media at all. I think you have to take these conversations seriously. I think where the difference is in the way it is taken. Are there going to be people who will tell you that the Jhalmuri visit was actually just a PR stunt? And are they going to question that on your story or on your channel? I think the second is how much space you give it. Are you going to show it in a loop, for 6 or 7 hours? Or are you going to give it the space that it deserves, which is a story? Maybe somebody, as a political analyst, will talk about what that moment means, compare it to what Mr. Modi has done, say, in Maharashtra or somewhere else. I remember one story we did where we actually put together all the times that he had said that you are my #1 state, and to how many states he had said it. But that's not meant to just criticize him. It is meant to be a kind of reminder to people that every story has all kinds of sides. Again, I keep getting this sort of idea that somehow we are this aberration. We're not. What News Laundry puts out every day, frankly, resonates across people. Even right now, I can tell you, if Akash walks out, he will be thronged for autographs. How have we decided, therefore, that none of these are relevant? And my final point really is this is not about specific, to talk about specific owners, specific media outlets, as if they have somehow betrayed the entire. This is a system. We are going through a system. As I said, this is the best time to be a journalist. There are times when I feel really bad for having missed a story, and then I get up in the morning and realize nobody else did it. I can still do it. So honestly speaking, it's not. There are times when I realize that, there is an interview I'm trying for and actually nobody else is. So it doesn't matter. The point being again and again that, all of these things can work until a certain time. Access journalism is dead, and it's not dead because people like us don't get access, or we don't get the interviews of the people in the top echelons of power. It is dead because those who have access still don't get the story. You know what I'm saying? So these things are part of our game. As I said again and again, I don't think there is a better time for a journalist to sit out there and say, I want to do the story. Eventually, we all have to push our boundaries. I want to compliment you for having done that. And we have to push the boundaries. Don't let others decide what kind of work you do, what kind of journalism you do, and don't let others decide what kind of news media you subscribe to.
On the structure of to answer specifically a question, the BBC's budget, this parliament will not decide this year's budget. It is decided, I think, 6 or 8 years it's committed. So if today I want to tweak it, uska fayda shayad mujhe na ho. Jaise ye PMLA jo bhi Chidambaram ji ne kiya tha, wohi usme phas gaya na. So that is one thing. Deutsche Welle, the German, they do not allow them to broadcast within the country because it will mess up the market. So it can only broadcast overseas. For example, in Germany, if the parliament, whatever is the distribution seat-wise of all the parties, there's a separate budget. They are given money in that proportion where they fund their think tanks, whether it's Liberal Democrats, it's the AFD. So there are systems. It is always structural. See, culturally, I can go on about cultural India is the issues, and I think it all comes from the caste system. But even if you just go by the structure of how the finance is decided, that will determine outcomes. And here, if today I don't like you, I change you. If today I don't like your budget, I cut your budget. That is the fundamental problem.
You see, if you're watching BBC these days, it's a very Spartan channel, in the sense that there is no frill. There are no frills. There is no kind of color riot on the screen, like some of our mainline television channels now. It's like watching a, video game. And they, the anchor is coming on a motorcycle and getting down and all kinds of things. Nothing of that sort. But if you watch those programs intently, and if you're serious about understanding issues, they're the best thing to go. So they have their fixed audience, and that audience questions them often. Their coverage of Epstein scandal and the initial coverage of the way they treated what is that prince who got finally Prince Andrew.
No longer prince.
No longer prince, but so they were taken to the cleaners. The BBC was taken to the cleaners. I mean, this public outrage saw that CEOs getting changed. Can you have anything of this nature here? Our culture is different. The news consumption culture in India is very different. And we had the owner of one of the leading newspapers in India having said in an interview that we are not in the business of news, we are in the business of advertising. The fact is that we are in the business of advertising now. Everybody is in the business of advertising. If your news coverage is impacting your advertiser, for instance, there was a huge lottery scam in many newspapers, and I had first-hand knowledge. It was clear, no, don't cover that, because they are big advertisers. So if a lottery king is a big advertiser, what to say about an Adani or an Ambani or whoever? That's the problem. So that's where you must pay for the newspaper that you buy and pay for the news you're seeking, because our audience is used to free-to-air channels and newspapers with the cover price of 5 rupees. I'm not even talking about the Hindu. Hindu is lucky it has a committed readership.
And they have a subscription model.
They have a subscription model, and they've been working on it. Actually, N. Ram had been talking about this digital thing. He's been talking about past 1 decade and more. So the point is that, and paywall. See, the point is, people pay for New York Times, don't they? So if you can pay for New York Times, pay for Times of India also, pay for Hindustan Times. But the fact remains that there has been a decline.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma.
And there is nothing like investigative journalism anymore. There is no investigative journalism, so nobody is trying to find news which somebody is trying to hide.
If you can take one more question, I'm sure they'll give it. Yes, another question. I'll just take somebody on the back, the extreme end, who's been waiting since the beginning.
My question is for Suhasini ma'am. We keep talking about media bias, but is not the terminal decline a biological reality? Because according to Gloria Mark, University of California, our screen attention span has crashed from 150 seconds in 2004 to just 47 seconds today. Are we witnessing the death of media simply because the audience can no longer focus long enough to care about the truth, ma'am?
I'll give you an example. Firstly, I don't necessarily believe that's That's absolutely the truth, because you're talking about an average. In any case, different people are interested in different things. Those who want the news should be able to get it, and that number should be increasing. That's all I'm saying. That we're not looking for the 16 billion eyeballs and the 16 billion, the 8 billion readers. Secondly, for example, I do a show, it doesn't always get a lot of views. And I've been thinking about this a lot, because we were told very clearly that research showed that even for the Hindu reader who has been, who has got a great plug today, most people will watch your video for the first 2 minutes. So should we do videos that are only 2 minutes? And you know what it did for me is two things. The first thing I did was say, no, I'll still do the longer version. If it gets 1,000 views, so be it. 1,000 views is more than I could fill in 3 of these halls. I mean, why would that be a problem? Secondly, we do a 1-minute version. And as a news journalist, you know that if you can't say something in the time it takes for that person's interest to stop holding, then you clearly are not saying something very important. You know, the idea of what we call, what is it called? The nut graph. There's in every news story, there will be one paragraph that will tell you why this story is important to you. And if we're not able to do it, then there's no point doing the 25,000 word story. There's no point doing the 40-minute long podcast if you can't tell somebody within 30 seconds why they should be interested. So I think, you know, the idea that the viewer or the listener or the reader will always be the viewer, the listener, the reader that they were 200 years ago is not true. We are part of society. We change with society. We have to keep adapting. I meet a lot of people today, and I say this actually just more out of shock than anything else, who have no idea that I write for a newspaper. They've only seen me on YouTube. So, and that's fine. There are even less who would know that I actually worked in television, 12 years before. And that's fine. We are having to move with the time. If I stop being relevant, or if my newspaper stops being relevant, then we're not doing the job we're supposed to do. Then we may as well be in some other business.
I just want to add to that about this whole paywall thing and why Indians don't pay. There's a cultural thing. And the cultural thing is that Tarun is gone away, unfortunately. I would have locked horns with him on this. The earliest reporters in our mythology are Narad Muni and Sanjay. One from Mahabharata, one from Ramayana. So Sanjay was live telecasting what was happening on the field of Mahabharata. Okay? Sanjay was a courtier at the court of Pandava's father, Dhritarashtra, and he was telling Dhritarashtra what's going on. He was a courtier. Narad Muni, on the other hand, was a Pandit, okay? And he was a journalist. He was the one, वो बीच में अपना लगा भी देता था, जैसे जर्नलिस्ट लगा देते हैं, तड़का लगा करके सुनाया करता था कि Ram has done this, कौशल्या ने ये कर दिया, फलाने ने ये कर दिया. They are two journalists basically. So we, in our culture, the news used to be given by the Nai in the villages when we had an arboreal society, and which was free. You are taking his services, he'll come and he'll tell you what's happening in the next village because he went there. So we want news free. And that was perpetuated by what you're talking about, Doordarshan. Because that was the first national platform started by Indira Gandhi for our political purposes. But that was the first platform where we used to get news. Don't forget, NDTV's precursor and Aaj Tak's precursor, they both started on Doordarshan, which was free. It was free to air. After that, when the businesses started coming in, ZTV started, Star came in. Okay, I came back to India because we saw that now the news was getting money. What we were making in BBC in London, I was like, when I left NDTV, I was making 5 times that in India. So because we knew that this is happening. This is the crest of the wave. Let's get into this. So we came back also with our own BBC sensibilities and stuff like that. We said we want to make a BBC Hindi-like Hindi channel in India, which we succeeded to a great extent. But we do not pay. So this whole thing of paying for news is not in our culture. It is there in the West. And that's why the subscription-based model works very well in the West. And the people who are, you said, you said your wife, pays for it. Only the people who are evolved, they pay that. I'll stand up and pay. When Tehelka started, I remember I was one of the first subscribers to Tehelka when it started. We went to some big hall, Siri Fort he had hired, Tarun Deshbhakt, and we all went, okay, independent media, go for it. And let's pay for 3 years for this. Because we are evolved people, we want different voices, we want democratic, system in the news, we want different voices. And that's what, and then we make our decisions. So otherwise the culture in India is कि news नारद जी बताएंगे और या वो संजय बताएगा या वो मेरा नाई है वो बताएगा. So that's why we don't pay.
So on that, I agree with some of it. I disagree with some. One is, ironically, I don't know whether you saw coming in, the haircutting salon here, the nai hair is called guillotine. So, pata nahi nai kya batayega. But I think culturally, I mean, the cultural angle, like news laundries survives by subscription. And if any of you want to ask me any more questions, please subscribe. Demonstrate to me you have, because I'm shameless at asking. So if you come to me after this, if we love what you do, I'm going to ask you if you subscribe, demonstrate. Otherwise, thank you for speaking to me. The fundamental model of how media owners see themselves. For example, they were saying that or the decline, we don't matter. I am in court, a criminal case, Times of India, against me in the Azad Maidan police station for defaming Rahul Shiv Shankar and Navika and that gang of buffoons. I got a call from the SHO there. If we didn't matter, there was no need. India Today has taken us to court. Sakal, Marathi newspaper, took us to court. Now, I think the model people don't understand, because traditionally the media owners here are used to 50 crore bungalows, 5 crore houses, 1 crore lifestyle. I think there is space in Indian media for 50 news laundries, but there is no space for one news laundry the size of Times of India. When I went to raise funds from funders, I pitched to a lot of well-known funds, and in India, like anything else, if you come from privilege and connections, you have access to every fund. The kind of bizarre questions I was asked, because my co-founders, Madhu Trehan, they did not want to know anything else. She's Naresh and his wife, right? Okay, we love your idea, but our ticket size is 3 times yours. Just replicate this across 6 languages, come back to me with an Excel sheet, I'll give you the funding. I was like, I do not have a Malayali Madhu Trehan, because in a Malayalam market, no one cares what Madhu is saying. I need Josie Joseph there. So there is space for 50 news laundries, and the terminal decline is certain. But the problem is, traditionally our media owners think, media mein jayenge, saste ka land milega, jo ab bechenge, bangla khada karenge, we'll make some deals here, and that will be a life. Then you should get into mining or something. That is the problem. They have not understood the financial model. And again, the lighthouse, if any economics student, the lighthouse problem, who pays for a lighthouse? Now, of course, we have GPS, but back in the day, a lighthouse would tell ships, don't come here, they're rocks. Now, who pays for it? Because once it's up, you can't say, you close your eyes. The richest pay for the lighthouse, but it benefits every small boat. News is the lighthouse model. And that is the model that has to be followed. I don't expect the laborer to pay for news, dude. He's not getting enough money. But I expect people who can, pay for $800 for a beer to pay $300 for news. And if you have 1 million of those in a country of 1 billion, that is enough. Which is why I was saying you don't need the Bang audience to listen to news. I wasn't talking about news laundry. I was talking about as an industry. You don't need the masses and more to listen to news. You just need a sliver. It's enough.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sekhri, Mr. Pachauri, and all the other panelists for your insights and answering the questions. But considering the time, we are a bit over time. We would like to announce the results of today's debate. So, the most awaited verdict. To the motion, this House believes that India's media is in terminal decline, has been won. Has been won by the opposition. Because at Delhi Union, when we started the pre-vote, we had 51 people who said yes, it is in decline, and 24 people who said it's no. By the end of everyone's speeches and all the questions, the opposition was able to convince the people here with their diplomacy, debate, and argument that no, it is not in decline, and therefore no increase from 24 to 53, and yes went down from 51 to 33. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving your time. It was wonderful having you, and we hope to see you in the next episode.